Hey everyone, so have you ever stopped to wonder what a bestseller list really is? I mean, it's not just a boring list of books, right? It's more like a snapshot of what we're all thinking and feeling, what we're curious about. Today, we're going to take a guided tour through the current top 10 and see if we can figure out what it's telling us about, well, us.
So let's just jump right in with the biggest question of all. What kind of stories are we actually craving at this very moment? Are we trying to escape? Are we looking for a thrill? Or do we want to understand the real world a little better? The answer, believe it or not, is hiding in plain sight right on this list.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get to know the list itself. Then we'll dive into the two genres that are totally dominating. That's romance and thrillers. After that, we'll look at a few fascinating outliers, and then we'll wrap it all up with what it all means.
All right, let's get started. Think of this list less like a shopping list and more like a cultural artifact. It tells a story about who we are as readers right now. And on this list, there is one name that's telling a huge part of that story.
Seriously, you just can't miss her. Colleen Hoover. Her book, It Starts With Us, is the sequel to her #1 New York Times bestseller, It Ends With Us, and the anticipation was just off the charts. Her presence alone is a phenomenon, and it's a massive clue about what readers are connecting with.
So that brings us to our first major stop on this tour, the reign of romance. Love stories are, without a doubt, a huge force on the charts. But what's really cool is that they come in so many different flavors.
And when I say a huge force, I mean it. Check this out. Out of the top 11 books on the list, 4 of them are romance. That's more than a third of the whole list. And we're not just talking about one type of story either. It's everything from super steamy novellas to beloved young adult series. This genre isn't just showing up, it's a total powerhouse.
And you know what's really interesting? Is how the romance genre is evolving. Take a book like Under One Roof. It's part of this awesome subgenre called the stimmest novella. It was really popularized by Hazelwood, who wrote the massive hit The Love Hypothesis. The whole idea is that these aren't just love stories. They're about brilliant, capable women in science and tech fields who also happen to find love. How cool is that?
And the variety just keeps going. You've got Book Lovers, which was one of the most hyped books of the year. Then there's Nick and Charlie, which taps right into that massive fan base from the Heartstopper graphic novels and, of course, the hit Netflix show. And, naturally, we have that blockbuster sequel from Colleen Hoover. It really just proves there's a romance novel out there for pretty much everyone.
Okay, let's step out of the world of love and walk into a much darker neighborhood on our little tour. The world of thrillers, chills, and clues. If romance is one giant pillar holding up the bestseller list, you better believe suspense is the other one.
But just like romance, the word suspense can mean a whole lot of different things. On one end of the spectrum, you've got James Patterson's 22 Seconds. We're talking a classic, high-octane thriller with guns, drugs, a ticking clock, the works. And on the other end, you've got Query and the Quince, where the big crisis involves stolen rings after a trip to a consignment shop.
Now that second book belongs to a subgenre that is just wildly popular right now, the cozy mystery. Books like Query and the Quince or the Gossip Cozy Mysteries box set. They give you all the fun of solving a puzzle, but without all the gritty, dark stuff. Think amateur detectives, charming small towns, and usually a much, much lower body count.
But yeah, don't go thinking it's all cozy out there. This quote right here, it's from The Innocent Girls, a detective thriller that's also on the list. It just goes to show that readers are just as hungry for those dark, gritty, genuinely terrifying stories. So it seems we want both, right? The gentle puzzle and the heart-pounding chase.
All right, so we've looked at the two titans of the bestseller list, but what about the books that don't really fit into those neat boxes? For our last stop, let's check out the unique outliers that prove readers' tastes are actually way more varied than you might think.
The first one is the only nonfiction book to make the cut. This will not pass. This is a heavy-hitting, journalistic deep dive into a very recent, very intense period in American politics. The fact that it's on this list shows there's a real hunger for understanding the real-world events that are shaping our lives.
And now for something completely different. Check out this quote from Hammond's Hard Cases. I mean, it doesn't get much more straightforward than that. This is just pure, unadulterated, action-packed science fiction. Aliens invade Earth, humanity decides to fight back. It's this jolt of pure escapism sitting right next to that serious political analysis.
So, we've toured the different neighborhoods, we've met the locals. What's the big picture here? After walking through this bestseller list, what did we actually learn? Let's try to pull it all together.
When you look at this chart, the story becomes incredibly clear. Mystery and thriller make up almost half the entire list. Romance is right behind it. You put those two together and they account for over 80% of the top sellers. That dominance is it's undeniable.
So, what's the takeaway from all this? Well, first, romance and suspense are absolutely king, no question. But inside those kingdoms, there's a ton of variety, from STEMinist romance to cozy mysteries. We also see that things that feel familiar, like sequels, ongoing series, and stories we already know from Netflix, have a huge advantage. And finally, it shows we're kind of a complicated bunch. We want to escape into love or sci-fi or a fun puzzle, but we also really want a clear look at the world we're actually living in.
And really, that's what today's bestseller list is telling us. It's a perfect reflection of our need for both comfort and a challenge, for pure escape and for real understanding. And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. If this is the story of today, what stories are we all going to be talking about tomorrow?